Today, we're going to break down one of the most fundamental mechanisms in modern AI. It's called attention, and we're going to go through it step by step to see exactly how a machine can read a sentence and figure out what it actually means. Let's get started.
So we'll start with a pretty simple sentence. It looks straightforward, but for a machine, there's a really critical ambiguity hiding in there. And this sentence, well, it's the central problem for this whole explainer.
Now for you and me, the answer is pretty much instant. We just use context, maybe a little intuition, but older AI systems, they would often get this wrong. The system needs a purely mechanical process to figure out who they is really referring to. So let's see exactly how the modern attention mechanism solves this puzzle.
To really get this, we have to imagine that we can freeze the system right at the very beginning. And at this initial stage, that sentence, it has absolutely no meaning to the machine. None.
Okay, so as the system first sees this sentence, it just converts each word into a number. We call it a token. You can think of them as just numbers in a line. And at this point, the system has not chosen any meaning whatsoever.
And this is a really crucial point. Every single token, the, manager, they, upset, they're all treated with exactly the same importance. The system has no concept of relationships or context. It's like the board is set, but the game hasn't even started.
All right, now the process actually begins. And it starts with step 1, universal comparison. Now, unlike older systems that would read from left to right, this model looks at everything all at once. And just to be clear, this is not memory. It's a direct, mechanical comparison.
This whole thing is the core mechanism, and it's called self-attention. Its key feature is that it processes the entire sentence at the same time, in parallel. This lets any word be directly compared with any other word, no matter how far apart they are. So, to solve our problem, the system zooms in on the token for the word they. And to figure out its role, it's now going to be compared against every other single token in that sentence, all at the exact same time.
To actually do this comparison, the system creates 3 different vectors for every single token. The query comes from they. You can think of it as asking a question. The keys are like labels on all the other words, just waiting to be checked by that query. And finally, the values hold the actual substance of each word, which will come into play a little later.
Okay, so the tools are all in place. Now we can move to step 2, scoring relevance. Here, the system is going to calculate just how relevant each word is to our target word, they.
This is all done with math. The system takes the query vector from they and basically checks how similar it is to the key vector of every other word. A high score means it's highly relevant, a low score means low relevance. So you can imagine words like customer and manager are probably going to get high scores, while a word like spoke will probably get a lower one. Now, it is absolutely essential to understand this. The system still does not comprehend the sentence. This is purely a mathematical weighting process. It's just assigning numbers that represent potential importance, and that's it. So, with all those relevant scores calculated, the system can now move to the final stages. And that brings us to step 3, filter, and step 4, decide. First, it's going to filter out all the noise, and then it'll use what's left to make a decision.
This is the filtering step. The system basically runs a function to normalize all those scores. Connections that have a really low relevant score are effectively turned down to 0. So for this specific calculation, only the words with the strongest mathematical links to they are kept. Irrelevant words get weaker and the relevant ones get stronger.
And this is what's so brilliant about attention. To understand the word they, the system has essentially made most of the sentence disappear for a moment. It simplifies the problem in a huge way by focusing only on the parts that are mathematically relevant.
So now, and only now, in this final decide step, can the system resolve the meaning. It takes those value vectors, the actual substance, from the surviving words like customer, complaint, and upset, and it combines them. This new combined vector becomes the updated version of they, and it's now packed with the context it needs to figure out that it refers to the customer.
And that's it. The process is complete. The system figured out that they referred to the customer. Now, just to make sure this mechanical process is perfectly clear, we're going to run through it one last time.
So let's just replay that. We started with a sentence that was ambiguous, and we ended up with a clear contextual understanding. And it all happened through a series of very distinct mechanical steps. First, it paused the sentence, treating every word as its own separate token. Second, it compared our target word they to all the other words, all at the same time. Third, it scored the relevance between them. Fourth, it filtered out all the weak, irrelevant connections. And fifth, it decided the final meaning of they using only those strong connections that were left.
So, the crucial point here is this. Attention isn't magic. It isn't thinking. It's a very precise, multi-step filtering mechanism. And it works because each step builds on the last one in a very strict mathematical order. If you were to take away any single one of those steps, the system would fail. It could no longer resolve the context correctly. It's a simple process, but it sequences everything.